I want to thank all of the physicians and scientists and volunteers, the people who are helping to advance the cause of ME, CFS, I can't say it, MECS, you know what I'm talking about. And so, you know, hopefully we'll go from strength to strength with the kind of cooperation and networking that happens, that is happening tonight. So anyway, so let's get going. And we have a treat here because we have the singer Marian Call here to help us and entertain us. And I just want to introduce Marian, who we got to know this evening. But I found out a tremendous amount on Wikipedia about her, and it's one of those things that Google helping us not to seem stupid for over 20 years. May interest you to know that Marian was born in Gig Harbor in Washington on a surprisingly mild day in 1982 in February 24th. And the reason I know that is because I actually looked up the weather for that day, and it was really a nice day. Because you'd sort of think, Washington, Puget Sound, February, it's going to be raining, but it wasn't. Who knew? Anyway, just, something you can take home with you. It's something to remember. Anyway, so Marian grew up in Gig Harbor. She graduated from Stanford in composition and vocal performance, and then unaccountably she moved to Juneau, Alaska, and we have no idea why, but she seemed to enjoy the experience, and I think that the cold winters in Alaska kept her indoors so much that it helped her become the great songwriter and singer that she is today and that you will experience in a few minutes. I just want to point out that she's made a lot of albums. She has been making albums or releasing albums, 10 albums so far actually. Her most recent is Standing Stones in 2017, but she's also done a live album, Marian Call Live in Europe, Something Fierce, Got to Fly, so she's somebody definitely to check out as I have, and I should say that I've become quite a fan of Marian, and it's partly because she's known for her songs about geek culture, and as a long-time geek myself, and I should tell you that I've watched every single episode of The Big Bang Theory several times, and if any of you are fans, we can talk later. So I'm a big fan of her music right away, and so let me just welcome on stage for your enjoyment, Marian Call.
You learn something every day. Today I learned the weather on the day of my wedding. There is something we must discuss. How with cell phone in hand you in my Volvo through the special bus, and I am more Volvo than any other kind of car. Reliable and safe and Scandinavian and swear on now. You bend it on the corners and you put out all the lights. So I wanna know maybe how you propose to make things right. That check. Why didn't you think the government fees are gonna set you so far back? And my darling sugar pie, would you stay up all last night and put off your taxes and eat too much and nearly go and miss your flight? Oh, you know you'd be miserable after that little white line. So why did you, 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 why? between sets, looking over my bank accounts and doing my taxes. I know they were due April 15th, but also they're due October 15th if you're like me. So, you na 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 na, you should na 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 na, you should na. You know what you should and should na 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 na. Shame on you, babe, shame on you, babe. I always do know what you gonna do, babe. You know what you should and should not. Oh, 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 oh. Maybe when you're older, maybe when you're sober, and you'll stop picking zids and picking nails and picking fights. I know I'm far from perfect, baby, I know I'm hardly good, but you get so much further if you would do what you should do, baby. If seeing we're caring, what a different line we take. If knowing we're doing, what a different world we make. What we want, what we need, we very seldom do. I want a smaller waist, I want donuts too. No, 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 no. And we visit on each other all the slings of self-defeat. And we cannot dodge the arrows of undisciplined retreat. I'd be better if my love were not so timid and controlled. I'd sleep closer if I were not both so bony and so cold. Hello, you are so beautiful. Thank you for coming tonight. I'm Marian. This is Seth Boyer with me. Can't go far or do much without a Seth. I'll talk later. I'll sing now. This is a song about the International Space Station. And if you know bits of it, you are very invited to sing along. I realize we have a big fancy stage and I have my extremely fancy shoes, but otherwise this is still an intimate little show and I really like it like that. So feel free to talk back and sing along and be a part of it. I'm so thrilled to be here with you tonight. Lovely. Good luck. This is for those of you who, like me, enjoy the night shift. Good morning, moon, love, how you doing? I've got business with you today. Good evening, sun, I'll see you soon. I work on my own terms lately. Who's to say we're upside down? Who's to say we're falling if we miss the ground? Who's to say we're going nowhere? Feel like spinning around and round. Da-da-da-do, 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 da-da-da-do. Good morning, stars, love, how you are. Nice we finally see eye to eye. Good day to be a speck like me. Thank you so much. I write songs about unusual things, if you haven't noticed. Other people have the love songs covered generally, so I stick to what I know. This is about being a small child and finger painting on the walls. It's called No Paper. It's from my newest record. There is no paper big enough for what I'm going to draw today. Oh, there are no letters tall enough for what I've got to say. Oh, all the margins on my mind, I run outside the lines, I run outside the lines, I run outside. Ba-da-ba, 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 oh, oh, ba-da-ba, ba-da-ba, oh, there is no paper big enough for what I want to draw today. Oh, grass stains on your knees, that's good, that's good. And dirt under your nails, that's good, that's good. And paint on all my jeans, alright, alright. Falling off some trees, you're alright, alright, alright. I used to want a trademark toy, now I only want more space. I want a room with empty walls, I want more bricks and paper, please. Oh, look how tall I wrote my name, how tall I wrote my name, how tall I wrote my name, how tall I wrote my ba-da-ba, 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 oh, ba-da-ba, ba-da-ba, oh, I want a word that says it all, I want more bricks and paper, please. Oh, let's write ourselves a story, 'cause the writers make the rules. We'll need a starship and a cutlass and a key. And I'm gonna make a treasure map of cones and signs, 20 faces down the lines. And when all our paints are shaken up, we'll make a new color and name it after us. Oh, oh, oh. There is no paper big enough for what I'm gonna draw today. And there is no shouting loud enough to tell you what I've got to say. Oh, ba-da-ba, 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 oh, oh, ba-da-ba, ba-da-ba-da. Da-da-da-da. There is no paper big enough for me, no paper big enough for me. There is no paper big enough for me, no paper big enough for me. There is no paper big enough for me, no paper big enough for me. Thank you all. We have some fun up here. I am pleased to be. A dozen people have asked me today. I'm down from Alaska, and if you talk to me for 3 minutes, I'll explain to you all about it. In fact, my friends have a little timer that they put on whenever I start a sentence with "in Alaska." They say "ding," and I'm like, "Okay, right." But if you have any questions, I'd be happy to explain. This song is absolutely true, because while I am working toward becoming an Alaskan, I'm still just a guest there after 16 years. I'll get there. This is called "I Wish I Were a Real Alaskan Girl," and this is about what it's like to be an Alaskan indoor cat. Oh, I wish I were a real Alaskan girl. I wish that I could hold my beer. I would wear hip waders in summer and heels a 10 below. I'd have sexy woolly legs with long and flowing frozen hair. Oh, to be a cowgirl in the last frontier, where chicks run the Iditarod and win it. Yeah, I'd ranch on my own goose, and I would jerk my own moose, and I'd drive a huge domestic truck and actually host a little less sugar and more spice. I tried to do me wrong, I wouldn't hardly hesitate to skin, gut, and fillet him. I'd shoot more than a camera, the animals and such. I'd eat a Rudolph for breakfast and Bullwinkle for lunch. Alaskan girls are fearsome and fearless by design. They kill mosquitoes with a look and mess with trusting tourist minds. They're ruggedly handsome in their way. They're wild and free and meant to be that way. So from Jackaloff to Juno, raise a glass to a proud and confident and deserving Alaskan woman you know. Who is not me, but I'm working on it. I caught a fish once. And from beaver to titlick, here's to ladies who understand that their self-image should have nothing whatsoever to do with their shade of lipstick. Oh, I wish I were a real Alaskan girl, but when it comes down to it, from Boston to Los Anchorage is gonna have to do it. Thank you so much. Do you mind if I do a new one? Now follow 2 songs about dating. Not my usual, but this is a goofy, happy bluegrass tune. I'm trying to give you guys an overview of who I am if you've never heard of me before, and this is quite the range. But this is a song that's called Bear and Moose. And it needs some banjos. It's like, this is my portable trumpet player. It's a lot cheaper than bringing a whole person with me. But Seth will have to be both the guitar and the banjo player, and he does an excellent job. Oh, it had been a long, cold winter, but the sun turned warm and sweet. It was time for shedding winter coats and shaking off our sleeve. And some moose climbed up the mountainside for something good to eat. 'Cause everybody knows that moose is bound to go wherever moose will go, and nobody says no. Oh, well, the fiddleheads and fronds were glowing green and growing fast. Lovely moose roamed in the roughage and rejoiced her repast, till the bear behind the berry bush stood up and made her gasp. 'Cause everybody knows a bear is bound to go wherever bears will go, and nobody says no. Oh, the moose held very still and she prepared herself to flee, till she realized the bear was more surprised by half than she. Oh dear, was this your bush? He asked with gentlemanly air. The moose considered and replied, supposing we could share. So they started into talking in a strand of scrub and spruce, and they had much more in common than the average bear and moose. The conversation flowed like honey, and the sunny hours flew. 'Cause everybody knows that bears and mooses goes where bears and mooses goes, and nobody says no. Can you guys sing that last bit with me? Everybody knows. 'Cause everybody knows that bears and mooses goes where bears and mooses goes, and nobody says no. Nice job. So from that day on together, they would range the mountainside. They served grass and grubs and alder bark and salmon berry pie. And when the nights grew long, they lined a cozy den where they could lie. 'Cause everybody knows that bears and mooses goes where bears and mooses goes, and nobody says no. So the bear said, let me take you where the currents grow dark and sweet. And Moose said, who'd have thought that ever you and I should meet? They watched the rising moon and promised never more to part. It might confound the other wildlife, but they knew their wild hearts. So if you ever see a bear and moose walking 2 by 2s, and you find it rather odd the traveling company they choose, do recall that it's unwise to tell your neighbors what to do. 'Cause everybody knows that bears and mooses goes where bears and mooses goes, and nobody says no. One last time. Oh, 'cause everybody knows that bears and mooses goes where goes, and nobody says no. That's about as silly as we get. It's my Prairie Home Companion audition. This song is also about dating, but it's a little more legit. This is called Mediocre Algorithmic First Date. Anybody? Anybody? Yeah. It was a mediocre algorithmic first date, approved by robot yentas in advance. He brought a story for me, said he got it custom made. He asked if I could try on the role he had his eye on. And he was nice, so I was game. As I struggled to remember his last name, I'm dreading time, and wasting miles. It might be nice to have a bath to walk a while. Oh, it might be nice to have a bath to walk a while. It was a mediocre, too familiar story. It was all rivets, hinges, buckles, bolts, and straps. It was heavy, gilded armor. I held my breath to fit. Lovely but immobile, it pinched my skin all over. But he was nice, so I was game. His story was much too small for me, but if I work at it, maybe. I stepped into his fairy tale and I acted nonchalant, thinking I am just the crosshairs between you and what you want. Thinking I am just the crosshairs between you and what you want. Thinking I'm just the crosshairs. Fit for a princess, it was fit for a princess. He spared no expenses, oh. It was fit for a princess, all fit for some prince's investment, oh. And in time he grew tired of castles and courtiers and cross-stitch and croquet. And she nodded her head and she looked at her hands and agreed and agreed and agreed with him. And agreed and agreed and agreed and agreed. And he loved how he loved how he loved her, and never looked under her again. But he was nice, so I was game. Yes, I thought I might do one more tune, and then we're going to have a couple people come up and chat with us for just a little bit about what we're here about tonight. I know a lot of you, I certainly have had people in my life who experience ME/CFS, and I've also had folks in my life who have had chronic pain, fibromyalgia, Crohn's, other illnesses that are in the same neighborhood and have the same sort of history of a lack of awareness, gaslighting, and generally being unobserved or being told it's all in your head or just get over it, you know. And I am interested more than anything else in my songwriting, in life, in everything. I'm really interested in what happens if we just try telling the truth about our experiences and letting other people tell their truth and seeing what happens. I find good things happen generally. So I'm going to do one more tune, and then we're going to hear from a couple folks, and then I'll wrap up the first half. We'll have an intermission. We'll do a second half with more, a little bit more goofy, nerdy songs. And now you're clear on the form. So this song is called Highway 5, and it is in my mind every time I'm on the West Coast. I realize we're not on Highway 5 right now, and Ukiah in the song is also not on Highway 5, but it is a West Coast song, and yes. 3 Pinocchios, oh come on. There are 101 references in this too, because I have driven the 101 and the 1 all the way up and down too, because this, oh my gosh, you guys, this state is not even fair how pretty it is. And it would not be fair for me not to drive all up and down it all the time. I'm packing up again to take a drive down old familiar Highway 5, where every curve feels like a friend. Oh, I've traveled north and south since I was born, for family, friends, for love and war. I know this road from end to end. This is my coast, this is my home, from San Diego up to Nome. Haven't seen it all yet, but I will. And I want to memorize it, every inch. I want to remember where I've been. I bless these waves, I bless this wind, I bless this grace, and all my sins. I mean to take the side streets where I can. The maps and the cost of gas per dam. The miles are only miles for me. So I breeze through my familiar points of call. Rice Hill, Ukiah, Kelso, all right where I know they're supposed to be. Oh, this is my coast, this is my home, from San Diego up to Nome. Haven't seen it all yet, but I will. And I want to memorize it, every inch. I want to remember where I've been. I bless these waves, this western wind. I bless this grace and all my sins. Looks to be a year of go and touch, leaning on my coffee like a crutch, with shards of daydreams in my hands. Oh, and the hot springs and the cold creeks, the lonely day, the long, long weeks will frame my jokes and permeate my plans. This is my coast, this is my home, millions of miles my mind can run. No one's seen it all, no one will. And I want to memorize it, every inch. I want to remember where I've been. I bless these waves, I bless this wind, I bless this grace, and this is my coast, this is my home, from San Diego love to know, haven't seen it all yet, but I will. And I want to memorize it, every inch. I want to remember where I've been. I bless these waves, this wind, this grace. All my sins. Ooh. Ooh.
Okay, guys, was that great? Everything was great. Okay, just moving right along. I'm really pleased to have Cindy Bateman here with us, and I just wanted to tell you a couple of important things about Cindy. One is that she is known national spokesman for CFS, and she actually sits on the NH advisory board on this disease, and so it's a very she's a very influential person, very knowledgeable. She was the founder of the Bateman Home Center in Salt Lake City, which provides care to people with ME/CSF in that area, and we're very grateful to actually have her make the trip, the long journey across the, no, it's not really that long, it's kind of a long journey, I guess. Once you're on a plane, it's a long journey, right? Okay, well, thank you very much, Cindy. Come on.
I'm really short.
Still the best.
Thank you for the chance to be here. It's hard to follow that beautiful type of communication. I wanted to talk to you, the title of my talk is Why Me, Why Now? And I wanted to say first, number one was why little M, little me? Why me? How did I get here? I'm from Utah, and had the great honor to go to the Johns Hopkins School of Medicine for my medical training. It was really great. Graduated, finished my training in 1987, and came back to Utah. When I got home, my sister, who had been a cheerleader and a downhill skier and a very active person, had become ill with a disease that no one understood. And she'd been to doctor after doctor while I was gone, and when I got home she said, you know, nobody knows what's wrong with me. In fact, the last doctor I went to told me I should take a night class, like get a life. And so that was the beginning of my medical career, and I began digging into the literature. I started my internal medicine residency at the University of Utah, and became very aware of the research. And in 1988, there was the first paper published about the possibility that a virus or other kind of pathogen could cause a long-term illness. And the CDC researchers said, we're going to call it a chronic fatigue syndrome, and we're going to study it. And that was what was meant to be the beginning of something very important, the beginning of a very long downhill slide. I finished my residency. I was very interested in infectious diseases. I thought I might go into that. When I was at Johns Hopkins, the first patients with AIDS came into the hospital, and our knowledge of HIV grew. And so when I came back, I spent time in the infectious disease clinic, and toward the end of my residency. When I left my residency, I started practice, and patients just kept pouring in who had unexplained chronic illness, fatigue, widespread pain. And I couldn't figure out why. I mean, we just hung out our shingle, and people started coming. Turned out that the infectious disease department had put my name on the answering machine on the evenings and weekends, and diverted patients from this medical center that was in the Intermountain West in multiple states if they said they were looking for help for chronic fatigue syndrome. So it's kind of funny, but it's also not funny. But it gave me the opportunity between 1990 and 2000 to see many, many patients and try to help them using my internal medicine skills to figure out what might be going on and how to help them. Well, in parallel, I was trying to understand and help what was going on with my sister. It took me several years to convince her what she had, and then she became, she really grasped and understood it. In 2000, I decided I was going to have a clinic. I stopped practicing internal medicine and just have a clinic just for, it was called a fatigue consultation clinic. And within 18 months of opening that, my sister developed non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and passed away from the complications of treatment. So it was that time, in my guilt and desperation and anger and frustration, that I decided I was going to do everything I could to understand these illnesses and raise awareness. For the next 10 years, I saw many patients and I learned and grew. And by 2010, I decided I was going to try to get into more, take the things I'd learned to the national level and see what I could do to contribute. Now we've been doing, and then 5 years ago we started the nonprofit, the Bateman Horn Center, and actually Horn is my sister's last name, so it's really named after her and in her honor. And we have a clinic and a research center, and we work on education. So why ME, big M, big E? So during this time, while we were using the term chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia and some of these other terms, there was a term outside of the US that was intended to describe people who became ill with a viral infection and then went downhill and their health went into the toilet. And this illness was called myalgic encephalomyelitis. That's what ME stands for, myalgic encephalomyelitis, and that means encephalomyelitis means inflammation of the brain and spinal cord, and myalgia means achiness of the muscles. And this was described actually decades ago, and long before the CDC started calling it a chronic fatigue syndrome. ME is a devastating chronic multi-system illness. People who develop this illness, it can wax and wane and move slowly or hit suddenly, but the defining features of this illness are that the patients are completely unable to function on a normal level, physically, cognitively, even from the standpoint of being upright. And the more they try to do, and the more they're encouraged, the more their disease flares. It's a disease of energy insufficiency, and this disease affects the entire body. It disrupts sleep, it causes cognitive impairment, it causes inability to be upright very long without becoming exhausted and developing worse symptoms. It has neurologic symptoms of amplified sensory symptoms and widespread pain and immune and inflammatory problems. We do still not understand this illness, but we know what it looks like. So why now? Here's why now. I have three things. One is, for 30 years, patients, their advocates, a sprinkling of physicians and scientists have tried to move this illness forward. In 2015, around that time, the patient advocacy community banged on the door hard enough at the National Institutes of Health and the Department of Health and Human Services and got their awareness. They awarded a contract to the National Academy of Medicine, and a large evidence-based review was done, and new diagnostic criteria were published. Those are the kind of criteria that can be respected by all of medicine. The NIH adopted the term ME, so that's why we call it ME-CFS, as a reminder of the old term, but a new understanding that this is a devastating illness called myalgic encephalomyelitis, with the hope we could drop that really misunderstood term, chronic fatigue syndrome. In addition to that, the National Institutes of Health, the director of made a press conference and said they'd been mistaken and misunderstood this illness, and we're going to make all efforts to understand it better, to fund research. They started an inpatient study at the NIH, and they funded 3 collaborative research centers just as a start. It's not enough. And that's why these organizations that are here have been fighting during those 30 years, trying to raise money, trying to support research, and bring this to the place where it needs to be. So why now? Why now? Because we actually have research. We have great research. Small studies, but real studies showing brain inflammation and altered perfusion of the brain, of abnormalities of the autonomic nervous system, of problems with the immune system and autoantibodies to receptors to the autonomic nervous system. We know that people have inability to maintain physical or cognitive activities, and we have studies that show, using standardized tests but also cardiopulmonary exercise testing, that their circulation is abnormal. They can't get enough return to the heart. They're unable to extract oxygen from the blood properly while exercising. All of these studies are now in publication. They're out there. We know there are problems with metabolism and that the cellular energy is very low, and that patients who try to do more or extend their activity become more and more ill. We know that this illness has similarity with people who have high cord compression and people who have spinal fluid leaks. And those are some of the examples of people who are unable to remain upright. We have a lot of research and we have a lot of hope. We need much more funding. Number 3, why now? If you walk into an academic center, most large academic centers are still blind or indifferent to this illness. We still have only a tiny percent of patients with this illness who get a correct diagnosis. And sometimes it takes many doctors and years to be able to get the right kind of diagnosis. Providers maintain old stereotypes and they need education. And our research is underfunded. So my watch is telling me, shut up and stop talking, your 10 minutes is up. So I'm gonna leave the time to others, but I want you to know that we're on the verge of change. We just need awareness. We need awareness in all the public. We need awareness in our academic institutions, and we need funding for research, and we will make a difference and move forward. Thank you.
An education for me, I can tell you that. I hope it was for you too. So our next speaker is Linda Tannenbaum, and she's the founder and CEO of the Urban Medicine Foundation. It's a non-profit that's dedicated to funding and facilitating collaborative scientific research in this area. And she is, sorry, somebody say something to me? Okay. Anyway, so she, so they're working on her foundation's trying to work on clinical breakthroughs for chronic complex diseases, not only ME/CSF, but also Lyme disease and fibromyalgia, which is notoriously poorly diagnosed, treated, and also people with fibromyalgia get very little sympathy as well. So Linda founded OMF after her daughter became disabled with ME/CSF, and that seems to be CFS, and it seems to be something of a theme. I think a lot of people come to this field because they have a family member. And amazingly enough, when she established OMF, Linda raised $19.5 million to support centers at both Stanford and Harvard. That's a pretty incredible thing to do. And she's also moved beyond the United States, working with people in collaborators in Sweden and Canada. And I want you to give a warm welcome to Linda. Thank you.
And I want to thank you all for coming, and I want to thank Marian for her gift of music, and I want to thank you all for coming to hear about something that most of you probably haven't really heard of very much. Most doctors don't even know about it. And the reason is because there really is no way to diagnose it in an easy way, and there isn't a specific treatment. And So we have people in our database from over 100 different countries. I mean, this is all over the world. And just numbers which really don't mean anything because most people aren't diagnosed. But the numbers we all talk about is there's way over 20 million people in the world that have this. And just in the United States, there's probably over 2.5 million people in the United States that have this. And this is not even counting people who have post-treatment Lyme or fibromyalgia. This is really when we talk about ME/CFS. And this is a disease that is so devastating and so misdiagnosed, and many people are thought of as crazy or lazy or depressed, and doctors just write them off. And what their people really want, of course, is just to be validated and to know what they have. So I set up this foundation because when my daughter got sick, she was 16 years old, and it was her first day of 11th grade. And I dropped her off at school, and she was perfectly healthy at 8 o'clock in the morning. And at 8:20, she came down with what we call sudden onset ME/CFS. And what they thought is they thought she was having a heart attack. So we picked her up from school and we ended up in the emergency room. And the emergency room, of course, couldn't find anything wrong with her because most of the tests that people do in the clinical laboratory setting are normal. I don't know if you know that or not, but the reason that doctors and people write this illness off is because most of the clinical tests are normal. So we went to 20 different doctors. And then we finally happened on Dr. Dan Peterson, who's in the audience. And finally, she was diagnosed with ME/CFS, and we had a diagnosis. Now, we had a horrible diagnosis. It's a chronic disease. There's nothing that can be done about it except pain management. And what are we going to do for her? She was bedridden. I mean, she missed 11th and 12th grade. She couldn't get out of bed. She was very, very sick and very painful. She was in pain all the time. And I even asked a hospital once to put her to sleep for 2 weeks so that her body could just readjust because it was in such pain. But anyway, what we ended up doing was setting up a foundation to really facilitate and fundraise for research, because now that I had a diagnosis, I was able to take a look and see, okay, who's treating this? Who's researching this? What's the National Institute of Health doing? Well, the National Institute of Health, with their $39 billion budget to help people and improve healthcare, gave last year about $13 million. And yes, it was more than they've ever given before, but $13 million for a disease that nobody knows very much about. This year, apparently, they're giving a little bit less. And yes, they're doing an internal study now, and we're looking forward to those results, and they're finally doing something inside NIH. But really what's happening is all of us organizations are raising money from the private patient community mostly. And we have research being done at the Bateman Horne Center, and Solve ME/CFS is doing research, and Cimarron Research is doing research, and there's other organizations around the world that are raising money for research, but all of this is by private funds, so it's not very much money, and there's small projects happening all over, and we're learning a lot more, but we have to scale this up because until it's really taken a look at seriously, and we can find out what's wrong and help these people get their lives back. So that's why we're all here. And just to mimic what Cindy Bateman said, I mean, there is a lot being learned now with research, and really over the last 2 or 3 years mostly. So there's a lot of abnormalities that are found in the research laboratory, not in the clinical laboratory, but in the research laboratory. And Cindy mentioned many of them, so I don't need to go over what really have been coming out with a lot of different abnormalities now. But there's a lot of researchers now gathering together, talking. All of us are meeting and organizing together to share results, to openly share results, to really fast speed this research, which needs to be done so people talk to each other and there's conversation and we can have some answers soon. So we have set up, Open Medicine Foundation, we've set up 3 collaborative research centers. The NIH is funding 3 collaborative research centers, and we're funding 3 collaborative research centers. And we have one at Stanford University, we have one at Harvard Medical School, partnering with Massachusetts General Hospital, and we have one at Uppsala University in Sweden. And we're collaborating with people all over the world, from Australia and Canada and Sweden, Norway and Germany and the UK, and of course all the researchers in the United States. And we're really trying to bring as many people together possible that can talk about this and share ideas and see what's happening to this disease that is so complicated and so complex. And I'm sure, we are all sure, that breakthroughs are going to happen very soon because of all this knowledge that people are sharing together. But the most important thing is that we're getting together and sharing and working together. We have meetings, we're meeting together, and this is the way that research has to be done now. So I wanted to let you know. So one other thing that's very important for all of us organizations that we're doing is letting people know what we're doing. Because the patient community out there, many of them have been sick for 10, 20, 30, 40 years and literally homebound. And they need to know that research is happening. They need to know that people care about them. They need to know that people are fighting for them and they're on the Hill and they're at NIH and they're fighting for funding and we're fighting for research. Because truly what we're doing, all of us, we're saving lives. Because suicide is very high with this disease. And you may not know it or not, but there are so many people that give up and commit suicide because they don't know that something is happening. And we're trying to share what we know, spread awareness around, so people who don't know what they have know what they have, and people that know what they have can find out that research is happening and there's hope. So we're having this tonight so that we can all spread awareness. And the one take-home message that we ask you to do, and we've asked you here for tonight to help us, is to spread the word. Spread the word about this illness. Spread the word about what this is, so that people who are home and their family doesn't even believe they're sick, tell them that there is this disease that they may have, and then share the awareness of it, because we want people to know that research is happening and there's hope to hold on. And you'll truly help save lives if you can do that. And that's what we want you to do today, because time is not our friend, and we want to make sure that we find answers soon, but we want people to know that we're working for them and we believe that they're sick. So I want to thank you all for coming, and I want to thank you for your attention, and I want to thank you. Thanks.
Thank you so much. We want to share, there's a song that made this concert happen, actually, a specific song, and we wanted to share that now. It's called Anchorage. It's a song about living in your body. Today my childish laughter falls away. The stakes were real and we won't feel okay. With a night of bitter worry in my eyes, and a tearless year or two since the last day, the last and the last day that I cried. Oh, no, 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 take me back home. No, 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 take me away. Bring her round slow. No, 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 tie her up right. I'll sail around the night. I'll dark when it's day. Oh, no, 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 I got no home. No, 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 why or how. And anchor me, anchor me, anchor me, anchor me now. Oh, anchor me now. My body and my mind have scarcely met. I've spent my whole life being elsewhere and elsewhere. So down me in the only house I own. Oh, forgive my absence, love, and teach me to live. Teach me to live alone. Oh, no. Got a ring full of keys. No. Not one of them mine. So bring her out slow. No. Fold up the maps. If love goes by half, swear look for a sign. No. I got no home. No. Only away, so bring her out slow. No. The water's not clear, but I've watched ashore here, and I'm willing to stay. So sing me down to the edge of the wild. Stroll me out to the end of the field. Reel me into the places when you are on faces, over wine, over coffee and beer. And anchor me, anchor me, anchor me, anchor me. Anchor me. Walk with me. The sun sets 3 hours long tonight. We'll blind our poor disbelieving eyes with light. And if the dusk admits our fear of death, and we'll ride over the hill and cork it fast. We'll cork it fast. We'll float it west. Sing me down to the edge of the wild. Stroll me out to the end of the field. Reel me into the places when you are on faces, over wine, over coffee and beer. And anchor me, anchor me, anchor me, anchor me. Anchor me. See me down to the edge of the wild. Stroll me out to the end of the field. Point me back to the places when you are on faces, over wine, over coffee. coffee and beer. And anchor me, anchor me, anchor me, anchor me, anchor me, anchor me, anchor me. Thank you so much. We're going to take a 10-minute break, and then we're going to have a shorter second half with a lot of music. I hope you will hang out. I would love to see you all. I'll be back there to say hi, but grab another drink, hit the restroom, and we will resume with some more songs. Thank you. This song is about the mind's ability to fly when the body can't. Thank you for calling. Leave me a message, please. Tell me what day and what month and what year it is. Cause I'm not here. No, baby, I'm not home. The lights are on for sure. Baby, the occupants have flown. I'll catch you later. Goodbye. I got to fly, got to fly, got to fly. Well, I don't know how you stomach all of this reality when you could go circle the stars, you wouldn't believe where I've been. And just this week I made some freakishly fabulous finds. My corpse has been here, but my mind's covered miles of craving altitude, so kindly step aside. Got to fly. I've seen such things. I've been tasting lights and touching voices, and you can't clear my ways. I'll be back to pay the bills, but practicality may poison my choice. So let me go and recognize I got to fly. Thank you for calling. Leave me a detailed message, please. Tell me what day and what month and what year it is. I gotta bring you back the gauntlet and the sword and the flower. I'm gonna mount a rescue wolf. Gonna lay siege to the tower. I need invention now, so let me off this rock. Cause I fully understand the minute that I land. I got a trip, I gotta take, I gotta come, I gotta make, I gotta run, I gotta do, I gotta follow up. I gotta clean, I gotta send, I gotta file, I gotta get, I gotta give, I gotta go through that file. I got a list, I gotta note, I gotta jump, I gotta vote, I got to read, I got to write, I got to get no sleep tonight. Gotta go, gotta trip, I got to be, I got to buy, I got to try and hit the gym, and I gotta pray, I gotta think, I got to need a drink, I gotta laugh, I gotta play, I gotta squeeze you in. I got a million miles to go, an endless road home, so when I got time to go, I got to. I've seen such things you wouldn't believe it. I've been hearing shadows, smelling noises, and you can't clip my wings a minute for sense, cause I can imagine a reality where my choices are meaningful, beautiful, bold, where the waking life looks dead cold, where consequences really proceed from our acts, where the truth might once line up with the facts, but a while, oh, if I can imagine it so, imagining was matter, and that's why I got to go. Thank you for calling, I'll get back to you soon. If you get a message from the dark side of the moon, you know that that's me. Baby, you know I'm there, the reception's lousy, baby, but the views beyond compare. So if you wanna call shotgun on my rocket, you oughta, baby. Let's, baby, let's fly. To ditch the sad cynic saying we're all the same, saying we got no really real adventure left to unname, and no love, and no truth, and no spark, and no mystery, but I gotta take it off this rock, and I'm history. Thank you so much. A number of you mentioned on the break that Stanford University is in my past. Yes, it is. Yes, it's true. I lived here for 4 years. It was beautiful and sunny, and when I go back, I get panic attacks. But this song is a testament to my time there, which was wonderful, and to the time after. It goes like this. If there had been Twitter when I was 16, through research and retweets, I might have foreseen a dual major in classics and art history, while enriching and inspiring would pauperize me. We who sought knowledge for knowledge's sake, who swooned over Tolstoy and Bronte and Blake, who argued philosophy into the night. There's a tune we all know, and it haunts us like so. The liberal arts degree waltz, the melody thrills and appalls. Our passionate quest for intellectual readiness led straight through the quagmire of crippling indebtedness. The liberal arts degree waltz, one payment away from default. What makes life worth living except to examine it? No matter our earnings, portfolios, inanimate. We're romantics at heart, we can't help it, so damn it. The liberal arts degree waltz. Once music was science, once math was an art, once language and history were critical parts of the studies of businessmen and politicians. Have you wondered of late whether something is mission? Who needs sources or footnotes or logic or ethics in a world of philosophies measured in metrics? The click-through, the page view, engagement and likes. It can make people click, but that don't make it right. The liberal arts degree waltz, collections redoubles their calls. We'll have to go rattle our crowdfunding cups and pray that our rich Uncle Arthur re-ups. The liberal arts degree waltz, one payment away from default. I thought my prospects were brighter than listicle writer. These 10 household uses for the paper your comparative literature diploma came on will blow your mind. I'm not unduly panicky over modern insanity, but foregoing profanity, all the humanities. The liberal arts degree waltz.
Never stop dancing, Marian.
I don't always do that song, but here and in Boston, people love it. I'm going to do one more, and then we're going to have one more short speaker, and then we'll wrap tonight up with a few more songs. This is called Standing Stones, and it's from my new record, and it is big enough. This is a song about how wonderful it is that we will be remembered, and how wonderful it is that we won't at the same time. And yeah, it's that architecture, the liberal arts thing. Okay. We drew 9 lines from east to west, we drew 9 from north to south, and we stitched our names in concrete veins through miles and miles and miles of crowd. The solid rock, it does not care if we scratch our names, if we scab and tear, if we line and spine and grind it, if we dare to try to sign it. But we were here, yes, we were here, see the spirals and the runes. Yes, we made beauty, it made sense. Sometimes in our better moments, we were wild and we were wrong. And this is how our portrait's drawn. So sculpt and sketch inside your own. All we leave are standing stones. We scored the limestone just like so, to map the stars' ascent, to prove we understood the movement of circles where she went. The triangle had locked for us to babble about towers, and then we wrangled fire and rocketeered our sticks back to the stars, saying we were here, yes, we were here with the ciphers in the caves. Yes, we made beauty, it made sense. Once a lifetime, we were brave, oh, we were wild and we were wrong. And this is how our portrait's drawn. So sculpt and sketch inside your own. All we leave are standing stones. Oh, all we leave are standing stones. All we leave are standing stones. The stars have hardly time for us. They'll scatter every sign of us. But my path is mine and I'm driving dust as I find it, find it, find it, as I dare to try to sign it. But I am here, that's all I can know. I'll sing and spell it, smash it, head it's when my soul is bow. We were here, yes, we were here, and this is how it went. We made beauty, it made sense, and we destroyed, and we repaired, 'cause we were wild and we were wrong. And this is how our judgment's drawn. So sculpt and sketch inside your own. All we leave are standing stones. 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 What about John back up here? We have one more brief talk from a guest and then a few more songs. Thank you.
Whoa, all right. Brush my hair back. Anyway. So next we have Emily Taylor from Emmy Solve, and actually I just sort of reminded me that what Cindy said is we are going to kill off that CFS thing and just call it ME, right? Cindy, is that right? Yeah. Okay. Emily, just to introduce her, is the Director of Advocacy and Community Relations for Solve ME, and I should say that ME Solve was the first organization to be totally focused on ME, and it was founded in 1987, which is going back a ways, so it has an august history. And one of the major initiatives they've done is to develop an international biobank and instituted the Ramsey Awards for research, and they're very strong advocates for the expansion of national funding for a cure, which which is obviously very highly needed. I should also say that as part of the theme, Emily's mother suffers from the disease too. So please welcome Emily.
I'm gonna drive the sound guys a little nuts. Sorry, guys. I don't like the microphone holdy things. Okay. I don't know, it feels like I'm hiding behind something, right? I want to talk to you guys. So hi, my name is Emily Taylor. I am the Director of Advocacy and Community Relations for the Solve ME CFS initiative, or dropping the CFS, Solve ME. I am one of the 3 organizations that is benefiting from this concert tonight. So spoiler alert, you're at a benefit concert. So thank you all so much for being here, and thank you all so much, and our partner organizations, and Marian, and the amazing team of women who put this all together. Definitely a round of applause for everybody. Thank you. It is absolutely such a pleasure to be here with you tonight. Actually, believe it or not, because you are here, your ticket sales or your presence has, and some of you in your case, your donations have been part of this fight to bring awareness, education, and most important, clinical care for ME/CFS. And so you're in this fight, whether you like it or not. So maybe you want to know a little bit about me as your foxhole partner in this fight. I think it was very clear the reason why I'm here is because of my mother. In addition to giving birth to me, making me be here, she also really inspired me and trained me to be a fighter from a very early age. From convincing me to change my major from history and liberal arts to politics and political science, from writing me a letter of recommendation from my mom to my first job as a campaign organizer for Democracy Matters in 2001, to finding me my first apartment off of Capitol Hill with 10 days notice after I got my first DC fellowship and had no idea, I'd never been there before. So mom really was training me every step of the way to be a fighter. So several years later, when I was working on Capitol Hill and I received the call that my mom was very sick and hadn't been out of bed in a year, it was no question that I was going to fight for her. So I quit my job in DC, I moved back to California, home of the Golden State, and became a full-time caregiver. And I thought I knew what a fight was until I watched my mom fight her own body for 4 years. She was completely bedbound and couldn't eat solid food, and we were at a loss. We were some of the very fortunate ones. We had access to means and many doctors, and we just kept at it until we found someone who would listen. And through hundreds of treatments and trial and errors, my mom is 50% of what she used to be, but that's 50% of my mom that I have now, that I didn't have before. And so once I kind of passed through that chapter of my life, I ended up becoming an advocate. Not because I wanted to be up here talking to you all, and not because I felt the need to spew some political agenda, but because I recognized that there were hundreds of thousands of people out there just like my mom that may have not had the resources or care. And that's why I started to fight for ME. And, pardon. So I was asked to talk about a little bit how we do that. Well, I could be a real policy nerd, which is in my heart of hearts, but the short version is I went back to my colleagues in Washington, D.C. and told them, I aim to misbehave. And I organized the patient population, and it's unreal to see the power in hundreds of people who are wheelchair bound or so sick, and you can watch the color drain from their face as their heart rate rises and they tell their story. But I basically said, we can't keep allowing these people to be invisible from those in power. And I started organizing ME/CFS Advocacy Day. Next year will be our 4th annual ME/CFS Advocacy Day. Thank you. And we had over 185 members of Congress and their staff meet with our patient population. We had 174 patients come this year from 50 when we first started. And we're just getting bigger and we're just gaining steam. So I could definitely nerd out over all the different things we did, but I'll just share one quick anecdote of our success. This year, as part of our requests for ME/CFS Advocacy Day, we trained our advocates to ask for our inclusion in a funky little research program that nobody pays attention to called the Peer-Reviewed Medical Research Program. As you heard, the NIH has been notoriously bad at funding this disease, and the reason why they're bad at it is because they're not set up for it. They are simply a funding mechanism that scores grants, and then you get a score, and if your score is above a certain line, you get paid. But that doesn't work for diseases like ME/CFS. We don't work on a scale of scores because our symptoms are so variable, our research is so different, our disease is different. How do you fit a disease that has no real category into a system where everything's in categories? So we started looking for other opportunities, and that's how we came across the Peer-Reviewed Medical Research Program, operated actually out of the Department of Defense. So we organized our 174 members of our community, mostly who were sick. We went and knocked on the doors of 185 offices and really focused on those who had the power to change that. And this year, I'm really pleased to say, just as of 3 weeks ago, ME/CFS will be an eligible topic area for this medical research program next year, opening up $360 million in research to And as proud as I am of that achievement, we couldn't do it without you. Your support, whether in dollars, time, or phone calls, or even if you're really sick, that one click on the political action form to send an electronic message to your member of Congress. We need you to make this happen. So thank you all so much for being here, for supporting our efforts. Please don't let your voices be silenced. Please join this fight with us, and we will solve ME. Thank you.
Let's do this.
Let's do this.
I'm all fired up now. I might even change this.
Yeah, turn it up.
Let's do a new one. This has some swears in it, sorry. It's a brand new one though. I'm excited to record it with a little punk band, but here's a little preview. It's called Blanket Forts. That's right. Yeah, thanks. It's very fucking hard to see the goddamn point today. I feel like eating something microwaved and blowing on the fall of my appointments. And I don't have a song for this or a plan, just a blanket fort to hide in. It doesn't offer much protection, but baby, if you want, you can join it. Oh, 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 'cause I like you, and if I can't always like me, well, at least you do. Da, 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 da. I like you, and it smells like something's burning, but at least we do. Da, 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 da. Oh, 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 Remember all the days when we were scared of sharks and quicksand? And now the smoky summer haze has us bracing for the wasteland. And there is not a song for this or a plan, only blanket forts to hide in. And they don't offer much protection, but baby, hold my hand, 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 'cause I like you, and if I can't always like me, well, at least you do. Da, 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 da. I like you, and when everything is burning, well, at least we do. Da, 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 da. I like you, and if you can't always like you, well, I promise to. Da, 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 da. I like you, and when everything is burning, well, at least we do. We do. Thank you. That's a preview from my new punk band, the Gutter Snipes, who are not here tonight, but you get the idea. This is a song about solar eclipse. Anybody see that a few years back? Anybody go eclipse hunting? Yeah. All right. Yeah, you're my people. The song's called Goodnight Moon. It's about the solar eclipse, and it's also about It's an instructional song to myself about not continuing to read a small device filled with all the world's worries from about 5 inches away right before bed. And then wonder why I have insomnia. This is called Good Night Moon. Good night, moon, I'm with you. What you say, you and me, what say we? Both call it a day, from screens and skies, who rest my eyes, so brilliant, so bright. Alright, but now turn out the lights. Now turn out the lights. Now turn out the lights, so I can see my starry ceiling. Now turn out the lights. Now turn out the lights. Now turn out the lights, so I can fold up every feeling. Oh, 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 oh. Good night, sky, you know I spend daytime where I'm not measuring steps between what we need and what I've got. I wanna notice every cloud, I wanna jump in every wave, I wanna sing every song, but maybe this one's okay. I'll give it all to tomorrow, I gave it all to today. So bright, so bright, but alright. Now turn out the lights. Now turn out the lights. Now turn out the lights, so I can see my starry ceiling. Now turn out the lights. Now turn out the lights. Now turn out the lights. There, worry. There, fear. You're off to Didn't intend to, but we've had such a lovely time that we've run out of time. So I'm going to give you all one more song. Percolate. This has been beautiful, and one of the things I think is exciting is that most of the folks at these three institutes have not actually met in person and all came here tonight and have been hanging out, socializing, and exchanging information. That in itself is very valuable. And thank you all so much for coming here. This is special to get a chance to be in this big, gorgeous theater and have it all to ourselves. I really appreciate you being here. I'm Marian Call. Don't forget about me. I've got antiquated physical media back there, but you can find me on the internet as well. And I'll be working on new projects soon. Seth Boyer, the beautiful voice. We play all up and down the West Coast all the time. We would love to see you sometime. If you want to know when, just let me know and I'll get you on the email list that pings you when I'm near your zip code. And is that everything I was supposed to say? I think that's everything I was supposed to say. Yeah. Thank you all again so much for being here. I am very, very grateful. Yeah. You're so this is my own personal song. If I had a podcast, this would be the outro. But everyone else on the earth has that. I'm tearing up the road with two typewriters and a cat. Two typewriters and a cat. What will the hipsters think of that? I'm tearing up the road. Got my compass cue to you. Gonna drive around, boat, train, plane, my way. Cause I'm going back home. Got my cold weather coat. I got my cold weather hat. I miss my poor little cat in the window. I'm going back home. I got my rain boots on. I'll steer out of my way, Lady T.S.A. I got nothing that you want to dare. I'll tear up the sky if you just wave for me by. Got to seat back, tread like a fly. I'm going back home. Got my cold weather coat. I got my cold weather hat. I miss my poor little puppy in the window. I'm going back home. I got my rain boots on. Give me scarves and snowplows and storms. It's winter when I feel warm. I'm making cider with brandy and grandma's candy. And you better be waiting at the airport soon, cause I'm coming back home. Got my cold weather coat. I got my cold weather hat. I miss my sweet little cat. Oh, I'm going back home where my boy is at. I got my rain boots on. Vowing to eat an avocado a day. So far, I have been faithful. This is the avocado song. This is about dating in Alaska, and reality TV in Alaska, and avocados in Alaska. They have their similarities. There's a part for you. When I say, you're my avocado baby, you have to say, strong. You have to say, you're my avocado baby. Strong. You're very good at following instructions. When I say, you're my avocado baby, you say, you're my avocado baby. Right? You're my avocado baby. You're my avocado baby. Yes, but together. You're my avocado baby. You're my avocado baby. There we go. you get the notion? All right, you'll know when it's time. You'll get the idea. Some of you do. All right, ready? Can you help them out with the responses? Well, I had a good time, sweetheart, that's for sure. Well, I want to thank you for all your trouble. But if you lose my number now, I won't complain. 'Cause you're my avocado baby. You're my avocado baby. You're my avocado baby. You're my avocado baby. Said you're only good for one day. I said you're my sushi baby. Yeah. You're my sushi baby. You're my sushi baby. Yeah, only good for one day. And I said, ooh, boy, now boy, you better keep what you took. Boy, you better keep what you took. I said, ooh, boy, now boy, you better eat what you cook. Better eat what you cook. Hey, 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 Oh, I can't wait for more avocados. We had a good trip, sweetheart, that's for sure. Well, I want to thank you for all your hustle. But tomorrow I'll be 5 million miles away. 'Cause you're my faux fur baby. I said you're my faux fur baby. Oh yeah, you're nice and soft and not worth a dime. I said you're my MTV baby. Yeah, you're my reality show baby. Oh yeah, you're cheap and noisy and probably lying. And I said, ooh, boy, now boy, you better keep what you do. Better keep, boy, better keep what you do. Keep what I said. Boy, now boy, you better eat what you cook. Better eat what you cook. Hey, hey, hey. We had a good run, Pumpkin, that's for sure. I want to thank you for all that free beer. But you can stalk me online or at the show. Boy, you can call and text and call, I won't be home. Because I think I do it better out there. Said you're my hedgehog, baby. Yeah, you're my hedgehog, baby. Yeah, you're cute and all, but you're not much fun to touch. Said you're my TSA, baby. You're my Transportation Security Administration, baby. Honey, no explosions when you feel me up.